My name is Ji-won Kang, and I'm about to have a panic attack in front of the most dangerous man I know. My uncle stands 3 feet away, his face twisted in rage, and I can feel my hands starting to shake. Not now. Please, not now. But my brain doesn't care about timing. It never has. I have ADHD, and right now, with him screaming about family legacy and duty and my worthlessness, every sound in this room is like glass breaking inside my skull. The ticking of the grandfather clock. The rustle of papers on my desk. His breathing. My breathing. Everything is too much, too loud, too close. I count silently, 1, 2, 3, trying to hold on, but I know I'm losing this battle. I've been losing this battle my entire life. Are you even listening to me? Dong-hyun slams his hand on my desk, scattering chess pieces across the board I'd been studying for 3 hours. A knight falls to the floor. My favorite piece. I watch it roll under the bookshelf, and for some reason, that's what breaks me. Not his words. Not his threats. Just that small wooden knight disappearing into the darkness. I stand up so fast my chair hits the wall. I don't say anything because I can't trust my voice. I just walk. Past him. Past the men guarding my door who aren't really protecting me but keeping me imprisoned in this mansion. Past the portraits of ancestors I've disappointed just by existing. I walk out the front door for the first time in 4 months, and I don't look back. Before we dive deeper into this story, if you're enjoying this journey and want to see more content like this, stories about resilience, unexpected connections, and finding strength in our vulnerabilities, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment below telling me what you think about Ji-won's struggle so far, and smash that like button to help this story reach others who might need to hear it. Your support means everything, and it helps us create more meaningful content. Now, let's continue. The streets of Seoul swallowed Ji-won whole. He'd forgotten how overwhelming the outside world could be. Neon signs flickered in a language he'd spoken his entire life but suddenly couldn't process. People brushed past him, their conversations blending into white noise that made his teeth ache. He walked without direction, letting his feet decide where to go, because making decisions right now required energy he didn't have. His chest tightened with each block. The panic attack he'd been fighting in his study hadn't disappeared. It had followed him out here, growing larger, feeding on the chaos around him. He needed to find somewhere quiet. Somewhere he could breathe. But everywhere he looked, there were people, cars, noise, movement, life happening at a speed his brain couldn't match. Ji-won found himself near the Han River without remembering how he got there. The water moved with patient indifference, and he envied it. He sat on a bench and put his head in his hands, trying to remember the breathing exercises he'd read about in one of the many psychology books lining his shelves. Books he'd studied hoping to fix himself, to understand why he couldn't be the person his family needed him to be. 5 things you can see. That's how it started, right? But he couldn't see anything through the blur. His vision tunneled. His hands trembled so violently he had to grip his knees to stop them. This was bad. This was worse than usual. He stood, thinking maybe movement would help, but his legs felt disconnected from his body. He stumbled, catching himself on the bench, and that's when he heard her voice. Hey. Hey, you okay? The voice was soft, careful, like someone approaching a frightened animal. Ji-won couldn't look up. Couldn't speak. His throat had closed around words he didn't have anyway. I'm going to sit next to you, all right? You don't have to talk. Just keep breathing. The bench shifted as someone sat down, not too close, respecting his space. My name's Emily. I'm not going to hurt you or ask you for anything. I just want to make sure you're safe. There was an accent there. Not Korean. English, but not American. The foreignness of it, paradoxically, grounded him. This person didn't know him. Didn't know his name, his family, the weight of expectations he carried like stones in his pockets. Can you hear me? Emily asked. If you can, just nod. Ji-won managed a small movement of his head. Good. That's really good. I'm going to talk for a bit, and you just focus on my voice, okay? Don't worry about responding. She paused, and Ji-won could hear her breathing deliberately, slowly. I'm from Canada. Toronto, specifically. Been in Seoul for about 6 months now, teaching English to kids who are way smarter than me. They keep correcting my Korean pronunciation, which is fair because it's terrible. Despite everything, despite the panic still coursing through him, Ji-won found himself listening. Her voice had a rhythm to it, unhurried and warm. I come to this spot a lot, Emily continued. The river reminds me of Lake Ontario back home. Different, obviously, but water is water, you know. It just keeps moving, doesn't care about our problems, our bad days, our mess. It's kind of comforting. Another pause. Your breathing is getting slower. That's good. You're doing great. Ji-won finally looked up. The woman beside him had brown skin that caught the evening light, dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, and eyes that held genuine concern without pity. She wore jeans and a hoodie with a faded Canadian flag on the sleeve. She looked completely ordinary and somehow extraordinary for it. There you are, she said, smiling gently. Welcome back. I'm sorry, Ji-won managed, his voice rough. For what? Having a panic attack. Trust me, you're not the first person to have one on this bench. Probably won't be the last. Emily reached into her bag and pulled out a water bottle, unopened. Here. Small sips. He took it with shaking hands. The cap was difficult to twist, and he fumbled with it until Emily quietly took it back, opened it, and handed it to him again. No fuss. No judgment. Just simple kindness. They sat in silence while Ji-won drank the water. The panic was receding now, leaving behind the familiar exhaustion that always followed. He should leave. Thank her and disappear back into the life he'd temporarily escaped. But he couldn't make himself move. Rough day? Emily asked. Rough life, Ji-won said, surprising himself with honesty. Yeah. I know that feeling. She looked out at the river. Different specifics, probably, but the weight is the same. Why did you help me? Emily turned to him, considering the question seriously. My dad used to have panic attacks. After my mom left Namibia and they moved to England, then Canada, he struggled a lot. Depression, anxiety, the whole package. I learned young that sometimes people just need someone to sit with them. No solutions, no advice, just presence. Your mother is from Namibia. Yeah. My dad's British, met her when he was doing research there. She's the strongest person I've ever known. Had to be, to leave everything she knew and start over. Emily smiled, but there was sadness in it. Anyway, that's probably more than you wanted to know from a random stranger. I don't mind, Ji-won said. And he didn't. There was relief in talking to someone who didn't know Ji-won Kang, the Mafia heir, the disappointment, the broken successor. She just saw a person having a bad day. They talked until the sun set completely. Not about anything important. Emily told him about her students, about trying to find good Ethiopian food in Seoul to feel closer to the African community she'd been exploring. Ji-won found himself talking about chess, about the patterns and strategies that made sense when nothing else did. He didn't mention his family. Didn't mention the mansion or the men with guns or the uncle who wanted to use him as a puppet king. When Emily finally stood to leave, she hesitated. I work at a cafe near Hongdae. Aurora Cafe, the one with the terrible English pun on the sign. If you're ever in the area and need a quiet place to sit, we make decent tea. She said it casually, like an offhand comment, but Ji-won understood it for what it was. An invitation. A lifeline. Thank you, he said. For tonight. Anytime, Emily replied, and something in her tone suggested she meant it. Ji-won returned to the mansion that night expecting consequences. His uncle's rage, punishment, new restrictions. But Dong-hyun barely acknowledged his absence, too busy planning whatever new scheme would further tarnish the family name while lining his own pockets. Ji-won was useful for his bloodline, for the respect his mere existence commanded, but his actual presence was optional. Possibly even inconvenient. He lay in his bed, in his enormous room filled with books he'd read to understand the world he couldn't fully participate in, and thought about Emily Brooks. Her calm voice. Her lack of fear. The way she'd treated his panic attack like an inconvenience to manage rather than a character flaw to be ashamed of. 3 days passed before he found himself standing outside Aurora Cafe. He'd told himself he was just walking, exploring the city he'd been trapped in for years, but his feet had carried him here with clear intent. Through the window, he could see Emily behind the counter, laughing at something a customer said. The sight made his chest ache in an unfamiliar way. He almost left. This was stupid, dangerous even. Getting close to someone meant giving his uncle leverage. But before he could talk himself out of it, Emily looked up and saw him. Her face broke into a genuine smile, and she waved him inside. The cafe was small, warmly lit, with mismatched furniture that should have clashed but somehow worked. Soft jazz played from speakers Ji-won couldn't see. It wasn't crowded, just a few students with laptops and an elderly couple sharing a pastry. "You came," Emily said as he approached the counter. "You said the tea was decent." "I said it was decent," which in cafe language means mediocre at best. She was already reaching for a cup. "But I know how to make it properly. My dad's British, remember? Tea is serious business. Go sit anywhere. I'll bring it over." Ji-won chose a corner table, a habit from years of needing to see all exits, all approaches. He pulled out the portable chess set he'd started carrying, more security object than game at this point, and set up a problem he'd been working on. Emily appeared with tea and what looked like homemade banana bread. "On the house. You look like you haven't eaten today." She was right. He hadn't. Eating required remembering to eat, and his brain didn't always cooperate with basic necessities. "Can I sit?" she asked. "My shift ends in 10 minutes, and we're slow." Ji-won nodded, not trusting his voice. He wasn't used to people wanting to spend time with him. His family tolerated his presence. His uncle exploited it. But wanting it? That was new. Emily sat across from him, studying the chessboard. "I never learned how to play. Always seemed complicated." "It is," Ji-won admitted. "That's why I like it. The complications have rules. They make sense. Unlike life." "Unlike life," he agreed. She reached out and touched one of the pieces, a pawn. "Could you teach me? I mean, if you want to. No pressure. I just think it might be interesting." And so it began. Over the following weeks, Ji-won found himself returning to Aurora Cafe almost daily. He'd sit in his corner with his books and his chess set, and Emily would join him during her breaks. He taught her chess slowly, methodically, starting with how each piece moved. She was a patient student, asking questions, making mistakes without embarrassment, laughing when she blundered into an obvious trap. "You're getting better," Ji-won said one afternoon after she successfully executed a simple fork, threatening 2 of his pieces at once. "I have a good teacher," Emily replied. "Patient. Doesn't make me feel stupid when I mess up." "You're not stupid." "No, but I make a lot of stupid moves." She grinned. "There's a difference." Between games, they talked. Emily told him about her childhood in Toronto, navigating identity as a mixed-race kid who didn't quite fit anywhere. Her British father reading her Shakespeare before bed. Her Namibian mother teaching her about resilience, about carrying your culture with you wherever you go. Her decision to come to Seoul partly for adventure, partly to understand her own relationship with displacement. Ji-won shared carefully edited pieces of his own life. He talked about growing up isolated, about the books he'd read to understand a world he couldn't access, about the ADHD that made him feel broken in a family that valued strength above all. He didn't mention what his family actually did. Didn't explain why he'd spent years barely leaving his house. "You're not broken," Emily said one evening, her voice firm. "Your brain works differently. That's not the same thing. My family doesn't see it that way." "Then your family is wrong." She said it simply, like stating a fact, and Ji-won wanted desperately to believe her. He noticed things about Emily. The way she moved through the world with a gentleness he'd never encountered. She was kind to everyone, the difficult customers, the stressed students, the elderly couple who came in every Tuesday and Thursday. But it wasn't performative kindness. It was genuine, rooted in some deep well of compassion he couldn't fathom. She never pushed him to share more than he was comfortable with. Never asked about the expensive watch he wore or the car that sometimes dropped him off a block away from the cafe. She seemed content to know him as he was in those moments, sitting across from her, moving chess pieces and drinking tea. But Ji-won knew it couldn't last. His uncle's patience with his absences was wearing thin. Dong-hyun had started asking questions, making thinly veiled threats about family duty and loyalty. The walls were closing in again. One evening, as Emily was closing up the cafe, Ji-won noticed a black car idling across the street. His uncle's men. They weren't even trying to be subtle anymore. They wanted him to know he was being watched. Emily followed his gaze. "Friends of yours?" "No." She looked at him for a long moment, and he could see her deciding whether to push. "Ji-won, are you in some kind of trouble?" He should lie. Should make up something innocuous and protect her from the truth. But he was tired of lying, tired of hiding, tired of being alone with the weight of his reality. "Yes," he said simply. "Can you tell me about it? I don't want to drag you into my problems." Emily locked the cafe door and turned off the open sign. "How about we go for a walk? You can decide what to tell me, and I'll decide what I can handle." "Deal." They walked along the Han River, the same route they'd taken that first night. The black car followed at a distance, not even pretending otherwise now. Ji-won could feel his anxiety rising, but Emily's presence beside him, steady, calm, unhurried, kept him from spiraling. "My family name is Kang," he began. "In certain circles in Seoul, that name means something. My grandfather built an empire, legitimate businesses mostly, but the foundation was less legitimate. My father tried to change that, to clean up the family operations, but he died when I was 12. Emily listened without interrupting, her hands in her pockets, her expression neutral. "My uncle took over after that. Dong-hyun. He doesn't want to go legitimate. He likes the power, the fear, the control. But he needs me because the old families, the ones who still respect tradition, they won't fully support him without my endorsement. I'm the heir by blood." "But you don't want this life," Emily said quietly. "I never did. And then there's the ADHD, the panic attacks, the days I can't leave my room because everything is too much. My uncle uses it against me. Makes me feel like I'm failing at the only thing I was born to do. So I hide in my books and my chess games and let him make decisions in my name. Until recently." "Until recently," Ji-won agreed. "I walked out after a fight. That's how I ended up on that bench where you found me." They stopped at the same bench where they'd met. Emily sat down, patting the space beside her. Ji-won joined her, maintaining a careful distance. "That car that's been following us," Emily said. "Your uncle's people?" "Yes." "Are they dangerous?" Ji-won thought about lying, but what was the point? "They can be." Emily nodded slowly, processing this. "And you coming to the cafe, spending time with me, does that put me at risk?" "Possibly. Probably. Yes." Ji-won couldn't look at her. "I'm sorry. I should have stayed away. You just what?" "I wanted to be someone else for a while. Someone normal. Someone who could sit in a cafe and learn chess and talk about books without the weight of a legacy I never asked for." His voice cracked. "You made me feel like a person instead of a problem." Emily reached over and took his hand. The gesture was so unexpected, so gentle, that Ji-won froze. "Listen to me," she said. "You are a person. Not a problem. Not a disappointment. Not a broken thing that needs fixing. You're Ji-won, who's brilliant at chess, who's read more books than anyone I've ever met, who counts silently when he's overwhelmed, who drinks his tea too hot because he forgets to let it cool. You're a person, and you deserve better than what your uncle is giving you. I don't know how to be better than this. Maybe that's not the right question. Maybe it's not about being better. Maybe it's about being free." Emily squeezed his hand. "What do you want, Ji-won? Not what your family wants. Not what your uncle expects. What do you want?" No one had ever asked him that. In 32 years, no one had cared what he wanted. "I want to read without being interrupted. I want to play chess without it being a waste of time. I want to walk outside without having a panic attack. I want," he stopped, the words catching in his throat. "What?" Emily asked gently. I want to keep having tea with you. She smiled, sad and warm at the same time. That's a good start. They sat in silence, hands still linked, while the Han River moved past them with its patient indifference. The black car remained across the street, a reminder that this moment was borrowed, that reality waited with sharp teeth. What happens now? Emily finally asked. I don't know. My uncle will escalate. He always does. He'll want to know where I've been, who I've been with. He'll try to use it against me. And if he comes after me, I won't let him. Ji-won said it with more certainty than he'd said anything in his life. I'll go back. I'll do whatever he wants. I'll sign his papers and play his puppet. Just not you. He can't have you. Emily turned to face him fully. Ji-won, I appreciate the chivalry, but I'm not a damsel who needs saving. I'm a grown woman who can make my own decisions. And right now, I'm deciding that I'm not going anywhere. You don't understand what you're saying. Then explain it to me. All of it. No more carefully edited versions. Tell me what your family actually does. Tell me what your uncle is capable of. Give me the information, and let me decide what I can handle. So he did. Over the next hour, Ji-won told her everything. The legitimate businesses that fronted illegal operations. The protection rackets, the gambling, the ways his family name opened doors that should stay closed. His uncle's ambitions to expand into territories held by other families, expansion that would mean violence. The role Ji-won played as figurehead, the respected name that Dong-hyun wielded like a weapon. He told her about the times he'd tried to refuse, the panic attacks that followed, the way his uncle would wait until Ji-won was at his most vulnerable and then push harder. The isolation that came from being valuable only for what you represented, not who you were. When he finished, Emily was quiet for a long time. Ji-won waited for her to leave, to realize that staying near him was dangerous and foolish. Instead, she asked, do you want to change things? What? Your family. The business. Your uncle's control. Do you want to change it? It's not that simple. I didn't ask if it was simple. I asked if you wanted to. Ji-won thought about it. Really thought about it for the first time. Yes. I want to make the family legitimate. I want to honor what my father tried to do before he died. I want to stop being a puppet and start being a person who matters. Then let's figure out how. Emily, you can't. Can't what? Can't help my friend. Can't support someone who's been dealt a terrible hand and is trying to play it better. Ji-won, I'm not asking to join your family or fight your battles for you. But I am asking to stand beside you while you figure out what you want to do. If you want me there. He looked at her, this woman who'd appeared in his life by accident, who'd seen him at his worst and hadn't run, who treated his struggles with compassion instead of contempt. Emily Brooks, daughter of a British father and a Namibian mother, teacher of English to children in a country not her own, believer in second chances and small kindnesses. I want you there, he said. Good. Then let's start with what you know. Over the following weeks, Ji-won and Emily developed an unlikely partnership. He would come to the cafe with books, documents, anything he could sneak out of his uncle's office during the rare moments he was left alone. Emily would help him organize it, her perspective uncluttered by years of family mythology and fear. Your uncle is embezzling, she said one evening, spreading papers across the cafe table after closing. Look at these accounts. Money goes in from the legitimate businesses, but it's not showing up in the family holdings. He's skimming. Ji-won studied the numbers. She was right. Dong-hyun had been slowly siphoning funds for years, building his own fortune separate from the family's. The elders wouldn't approve of this. There are rules, even in our world. You don't steal from family. So that's your leverage. Evidence of his betrayal. It's not enough. He'll deny it, or he'll spin it somehow. I need more. They worked methodically, carefully. Emily taught him organizational strategies that worked with his ADHD rather than against it. Breaking big tasks into smaller ones. Using timers to maintain focus. Taking breaks before he got overwhelmed. She never made him feel inadequate for needing these accommodations. She just helped him implement them. In return, Ji-won taught her about strategy. Not just chess strategy, but the broader thinking behind it. How to anticipate moves several steps ahead. How to create situations where your opponent's options narrowed. How to protect your important pieces while sacrificing the ones you could afford to lose. You're good at this, he told her after she successfully predicted his next 3 moves in a game. You're a good teacher. Plus, I'm motivated. I want to beat you at least once before I leave Seoul. The comment landed like a stone in still water. You're leaving. My contract ends in 4 months. I haven't decided if I'm renewing yet. Emily moved a bishop, threatening his queen. A lot depends on what happens here. With you. With your situation. Don't stay because of me. Don't tell me what to do because of you. If I stay, it'll be my choice. Just like everything else. She looked up from the board, her expression serious. I care about you, Ji-won. Not because I'm trying to save you or because I think you need rescuing. I care about you because you're kind, intelligent, thoughtful, and you make me laugh even when you don't mean to. Those are my reasons. They have nothing to do with your family or your obligations. No one had ever said anything like that to him. Ji-won felt his throat tighten, words failing him again. So instead of speaking, he reached across the chessboard and took her hand. She laced her fingers through his, and they sat like that until the tea went cold. But Dong-hyun was not a patient man. His surveillance escalated. The black cars appeared more frequently. Men began showing up at the cafe, not threatening directly but present enough to send a message. Emily handled them with impressive calm, serving them coffee with the same kindness she showed everyone, refusing to be intimidated. Your uncle's people were here again, she told Ji-won one evening. 3rd time this week. I'll talk to him. Tell him to leave you alone. What will you offer in exchange? Your compliance. Because that's what he wants, isn't it? He wants you scared and isolated and willing to do whatever he says. She was right. Every time Ji-won tried to assert independence, Dong-hyun tightened the leash. It was a cycle that had been repeating for years. There's a family meeting next month, Ji-won said slowly. The elders gather 4 times a year to discuss business. My uncle can't refuse my attendance without looking weak, and he can't control what I say once I'm there. So you confront him. In front of witnesses. It would have to be perfect. I'd need evidence, a clear case, and the support of at least some of the elders. Otherwise, he'll discredit me, say I'm unstable, use my ADHD against me. Emily leaned forward. Then we make it perfect. We have 4 weeks. Let's build an airtight case. They worked with new urgency. Ji-won snuck into his uncle's office late at night, photographing documents while his hands shook from anxiety and adrenaline. Emily helped him create presentations, organize evidence in ways that even people unfamiliar with the details could understand. She quizzed him, played devil's advocate, helped him prepare for every possible objection. What if they ask about your medication? She asked during one practice session. I don't take medication. I manage it on my own. Have you ever considered that medication might help? Ji-won bristled. I don't need. Hey, Emily interrupted gently. I'm not judging. I'm asking because your uncle will use anything he can against you. If you've refused treatment, he'll say you're being stubborn or irrational. If you've tried it and it didn't work, that's a different story. I'm just trying to help you anticipate the attack. He took a breath, counting silently. She was right. She was usually right. I tried medication when I was younger. It helped with focus but made the panic attacks worse. My uncle convinced me to stop taking it. Said it made me weak. Everything makes you weak according to him. You know that's manipulation, right? Knowing it and escaping it are different things. True. But you're trying to escape it now. That counts for something. As the meeting approached, Ji-won's anxiety increased. He had panic attacks almost daily, usually at night when the weight of what he was planning overwhelmed him. Emily started coming to the mansion, sneaking past security that had grown lax with years of routine. She'd sit with him in his room, talking him through the panic, reminding him why he was doing this. You don't have to do this, she said one night, sitting on the floor of his study while he paced. If it's too much, we can find another way. There is no other way. This is the only chance I'll have. Then we make it count. Emily stood and blocked his pacing path, forcing him to stop. But I need you to promise me something. What? If this goes wrong, if your uncle retaliates in ways we haven't anticipated, you won't sacrifice yourself to protect me. I need you to promise that you'll take care of yourself first. I can't promise that. Ji-won. No, Emily. I can't. You're the best thing in my life. The only good thing. If protecting you means going back to being his puppet, I'll do it. She cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. And what do you think it would do to me, knowing you gave up your freedom for mine? Do you think I could live with that? If you care about me at all, you'll fight for yourself. Not for me. For you. The night before the meeting, Ji-won couldn't sleep. He played chess against himself until dawn, moving pieces in patterns that made sense only to him. Emily arrived at 6 in the morning with coffee and banana bread and a small velvet pouch. My mother gave this to me before I left for Seoul, she said, handing him the pouch. It's a small stone from Namibia. She carried it when she left her home, when everything was uncertain and scary. She said it reminded her that she came from somewhere strong, somewhere beautiful, and that strength went with her wherever she went. Inside the pouch was a smooth, dark stone, warm from being in Emily's pocket. I can't take this, Ji-won protested. You're not taking it. I'm giving it to you. Temporarily. You can give it back after the meeting. She closed his fingers around it. Keep it in your pocket. When you feel the panic starting, hold it. Remember that you come from somewhere too. Maybe your family's legacy is complicated, but you're choosing to make it better. That takes strength. The family meeting was held in a traditional house that had belonged to the Kang family for 3 generations. Ji-won arrived early, the stone in his pocket, his evidence in a leather folder. Dong-hyun was already there, holding court with some of the younger members, poisoning the well before Ji-won could even speak. The elders arrived precisely on time, 5 men in their 60s and 70s who represented the old guard, the traditional families who'd built their empires in a different era. They respected hierarchy, tradition, bloodlines. They also respected strength and competence. Dong-hyun called the meeting to order, running through routine business with practiced efficiency. Ji-won waited, his hand in his pocket, fingers closed around Emily's stone. His uncle was deliberately leaving him for last, a power move meant to diminish his importance. Finally, Dong-hyun said, unless there's other business, we can adjourn. There is other business, Ji-won said, standing. His voice was steady. He'd practiced this. I have concerns about the direction of the family operations. Dong-hyun's smile was patronizing. Ji-won, we've discussed this. You're welcome to share your opinions, but the day-to-day operations are complex. Perhaps we should speak privately. No. This concerns everyone. Ji-won opened his folder. For the past 5 years, money has been disappearing from our legitimate holdings. At first, I thought it was poor management. But it's not poor management. It's theft. The room went quiet. You could accuse family members of many things, but theft was sacred. It violated the core principle that held these organizations together. That's a serious accusation, one of the elders said. Do you have evidence? Ji-won distributed copies of the documents he and Emily had organized. Bank statements, transfer records, shell companies traced back to his uncle. The evidence is clear. Dong-hyun has been skimming from family accounts for years, building his own fortune while telling us the legitimate businesses are underperforming. Dong-hyun's face darkened. This is absurd. These documents are clearly fabricated. My nephew has been unstable lately, spending time with questionable people, neglecting his duties. I've been researching, Ji-won interrupted. Reading. Learning about the businesses that bear my family name. And what I've learned is that you've been using my name, my bloodline, to legitimize operations that would never have been approved if the elders knew the full scope. You're not well, Ji-won. Everyone knows about your condition, your difficulties. This is clearly a paranoid episode. Ji-won's hands started shaking. The familiar panic was creeping in. Dong-hyun saw it and pressed harder, using the weakness he'd cultivated for years. But then Ji-won remembered Emily's words. Your brain works differently. That's not the same as broken. He pulled the stone from his pocket and held it, letting its weight ground him. Yes, I have ADHD, he said clearly. Yes, I have panic attacks. Yes, I struggle with things that come easily to others. But none of that makes me stupid. None of that makes this evidence false. And none of that gives you the right to use my family name for your personal gain while treating me like a defective tool. One of the elders leaned forward. Dong-hyun, these numbers are troubling. Can you explain the discrepancies? This is a waste of time. Can you explain them? The elder repeated, his voice like iron. Dong-hyun tried. He spun elaborate stories about investments, about protecting family assets, about complex financial instruments that required discretion. But Ji-won had anticipated every excuse. For every lie, he had a document. For every deflection, he had a fact. The tide was turning. Ji-won could feel it. Some of the elders were nodding, comparing documents, asking harder questions. Dong-hyun was losing control of the room. Enough of this circus, Dong-hyun snarled. You want to talk about fitness to lead? Let's talk about it. You can't even leave your house without falling apart. You have panic attacks in front of business associates. You're weak, Ji-won. You always have been. The family deserves better than a leader who can't control his own mind. The words landed like physical blows. Ji-won felt his vision tunneling, his breath shortening. This was it. The moment his uncle had been waiting for. Proof that Ji-won couldn't handle pressure, couldn't be trusted. But then he heard Emily's voice in his memory. You're not broken. You're choosing to make it better. That takes strength. You're right, Ji-won said quietly. I do have panic attacks. I do struggle. But I'm here anyway. I'm standing in front of the people my family respects, presenting evidence of your betrayal, even though every instinct is telling me to run. That's not weakness. That's the opposite of weakness. He turned to the elders. My father wanted to make this family legitimate. He died before he could finish that work. My uncle has spent 15 years undoing everything my father built, using my name to justify it. I'm not asking to take over operations tomorrow. I know I have limitations. But I am asking that we stop letting fear and tradition excuse theft and dishonor. One of the eldest members, a man named Park who'd been friends with Ji-won's grandfather, spoke for the first time. What would you propose instead, young Kang? This was the moment. Ji-won had practiced this answer 100 times with Emily, refining it until it was clear and concrete. I propose we complete my father's work. Legitimize the businesses over a 5-year period. Use our capital and connections to invest in legal enterprises. Real estate, technology, entertainment. We have the resources. We have the name. We don't need the criminal operations anymore. They're a liability in a modern world where everything can be traced, recorded, exposed. That's idealistic nonsense, Dong-hyun spat. You think we can just walk away from generations of tradition? You think the other families will let us go legitimate without a fight? I think the other families are having the same conversations we are, Ji-won replied. The world is changing. The old ways are becoming too dangerous, too visible. We can lead that change or be destroyed by it. Park studied Ji-won with ancient, shrewd eyes. And what of your uncle? What would you have us do with him? That's not my decision. I've presented the evidence. The elders must decide what honor requires. Ji-won looked at Dong-hyun, and for the first time in his life, he didn't flinch. But he can't use my name anymore. That ends today. The meeting didn't resolve everything. The elders needed time to verify the documents, to discuss among themselves what course to take. But the power dynamic had shifted. Dong-hyun left the room with murder in his eyes, his authority challenged in a way it had never been before. Park stopped Ji-won as he was leaving. Your father would be proud. He had the same vision, the same courage. I thought it died with him. It almost did, Ji-won admitted. What changed? Ji-won thought of Emily, waiting for him at the cafe where they'd planned to meet after the meeting regardless of outcome. I met someone who helped me remember that I'm more than my family name. More than my struggles. She helped me see that I could choose differently. Park nodded slowly. Bring her to the next meeting. If you're serious about changing this family, we need to see all of who you are, including the people who've shaped you. Ji-won made it to the cafe on shaking legs. The adrenaline crash was hitting hard, and he could feel a panic attack building. But Emily was there, in their corner, 2 cups of tea already waiting. She stood when she saw him, reading his face. "How bad?" she asked. "I don't know yet. Maybe bad. Maybe good. The elders are investigating." He sat heavily, and Emily sat across from him, taking his hands across the table. "Did you say what you needed to say?" "Yes." "Did you stand your ground?" "Yes." "Then that's a victory, whatever happens next." She squeezed his hands. "I'm proud of you." Those words, simple and sincere, broke something in him. Ji-won put his head down on the table, still holding Emily's hands, and let himself cry for the first time in years. Not from panic or fear, but from exhaustion and relief and the overwhelming weight of finally standing up for himself. Emily didn't say anything. She just held his hands and let him break apart safely. When he could breathe again, he sat up and found her watching him with eyes full of understanding. "Your stone worked," he said, pulling it from his pocket. "When I thought I was going to panic in front of everyone, I held this and remembered what you said. About coming from somewhere strong. You can keep it if you want. I think it's done more good in your pocket than mine. I'll give it back when you leave Seoul." "If you leave Seoul?" Emily smiled, sad and warm. "I'm renewing my contract. Already told my school. I'm staying at least another year. Because of me? Partly because of you. Partly because I like it here. Partly because I'm not finished exploring what it means to be me in this city." She leaned back. "But yes, you're a factor. I want to see what happens next. I want to watch you build something better." The next few weeks were tense. The elders conducted their investigation slowly, methodically. Dong-hyun tried to discredit Ji-won at every turn, spreading rumors about his instability, his foreign girlfriend, his naive idealism. But the evidence was solid, and more importantly, several elders had been privately unhappy with Dong-hyun's leadership for years. Ji-won's challenge had given them permission to voice concerns they'd been harboring. During this time, Ji-won began working with a psychiatrist Emily had helped him find. Someone who specialized in ADHD in adults, who understood that medication was a tool, not a weakness. They tried different options until they found one that helped with focus without triggering panic attacks. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. "You seem different," Emily observed one evening as they played chess. "Calmer. The medication helps. But also, I think fighting back helped. I spent so long being afraid of my uncle, of disappointing the family, of proving everyone right about me being weak. Now that I've done the thing I was most afraid of, everything else seems less terrifying. That's growth." She moved her queen, putting his king in check. "Also, I'm about to win this game." Ji-won studied the board and laughed. She was right. In 3 moves, she'd have him in checkmate. "You've been practicing without me." "Maybe. Or maybe I finally understand how you think." Emily grinned. "Checkmate, Ji-won Kang." He tipped his king over in surrender. "First time anyone's beaten me in 2 years. I had an excellent teacher who taught me that the game is about patience, strategy, and protecting what matters most." She started resetting the pieces. "Same lessons apply to life, I think." The elders called a final meeting 6 weeks after Ji-won's initial challenge. This time, Emily came with him, at Park's specific request. She dressed simply, respectfully, but there was no hiding who she was or where she came from. Ji-won was glad. He didn't want her to hide. The room fell silent when they entered together. Dong-hyun's face twisted with contempt. "This is a family meeting. She doesn't belong here." "I invited her," Park said calmly. "Sit down, Dong-hyun." The verdict was clear and brutal. The elders had verified every piece of evidence Ji-won presented. Dong-hyun had stolen approximately $40 million over 5 years, money that belonged to the entire family. The penalty for such betrayal was expulsion from the family business and repayment of stolen funds. Dong-hyun's face went purple with rage. You're taking the word of a mental defective over mine. Over 15 years of leadership. We're taking the word of evidence, Park said coldly. Numbers don't lie, even when people do. You have 1 month to begin repayment arrangements. If you refuse, we will pursue other remedies. The threat was clear. In their world, other remedies meant things Ji-won didn't want to think about. And what of leadership? Another elder asked. The family needs direction. Park looked at Ji-won. Young Kang has proposed a 5-year transition to legitimate operations. I propose we give him the authority to begin that transition, with oversight from this council. He won't operate alone, he'll have advisors, managers, people who understand the business. But the vision will be his. He's not capable, Dong-hyun started. He just took you down with accounting records and patience, Park interrupted. Seems capable enough to me. All in favor. 4 of the 5 elders raised their hands. The 5th abstained, which was as good as approval in their world. Just like that, Ji-won's life changed. Not completely, not all at once, but the direction shifted. He would have responsibility, yes, but also support. He would have authority, but also accountability. Most importantly, he would have choice. Dong-hyun stormed out, but not before stopping beside Emily. This is your fault. You corrupted him, filled his head with weak ideas. Emily met his eyes without fear. I helped him remember who he is. That's not corruption. That's friendship. You'll regret this, Dong-hyun hissed. Maybe. But he won't. She smiled, gentle and final. He's free now. You can't touch that. After the meeting, Ji-won and Emily walked along the Han River, back to the bench where they'd met months ago. The sun was setting, painting the water gold and orange. Ji-won felt lighter than he had in years, but also terrified. I have no idea how to do this, he admitted. How to actually run a business, lead a family, implement these changes. Good thing you like reading, Emily said. I assume there are books about business management. Hundreds of them. Then we'll start there. 1 book, 1 lesson, 1 day at a time. She bumped his shoulder with hers. Same way you taught me chess. Small steps, building to something bigger. Will you help me? I know it's not your responsibility, I know you have your own life, but... Ji-won, shut up. Emily turned to face him fully. Yes, I'll help you. Yes, I want to be part of this. Yes, I'm choosing to stay in your life because being in your life makes my life better. Stop asking permission for things I'm offering freely. He kissed her then, gentle and uncertain, and she kissed him back with a warmth that made the fear recede. When they broke apart, she was smiling. Took you long enough, she said. I didn't want to assume. Ji-won. I've been waiting for you to kiss me for 2 months. I was starting to think I needed to make a more obvious move. You held my hand constantly. You came to my house at 3 in the morning during panic attacks. You helped me take down my uncle. How much more obvious could you be? Emily laughed, the sound bright and unguarded. Fair point. I wasn't exactly subtle. They sat on the bench until the sun disappeared completely, talking about the future in a way Ji-won had never allowed himself before. Emily would continue teaching while helping him organize the business transition. He would start therapy in earnest, not just for the ADHD but for the trauma of growing up in a family that viewed him as a useful object. They would take things slowly, building a relationship on foundation of friendship and respect. What if I fail? Ji-won asked as they finally stood to leave. What if I can't actually do this? Then you'll try something else. Failure isn't the end, Ji-won. It's just information. Emily took his hand, lacing their fingers together naturally. Besides, you won't be alone. That's the whole point. The transition wasn't easy. The first year was brutal. Ji-won had to learn business operations while managing a family that resisted change at every turn. Some members left, joining other organizations. Others staged small rebellions, testing his resolve. Dong-hyun made trouble from the outside, spreading rumors, trying to turn other families against the Kangs. But Ji-won had something his uncle didn't, genuine support. The elders who'd backed him provided mentorship and connections. Emily helped him develop systems that worked with his brain rather than against it. He hired competent managers who could handle day-to-day operations while he focused on strategy and vision. He had panic attacks. He had days where the ADHD made focusing impossible, where he forgot meetings or lost track of important documents. But he learned to work around these challenges rather than being defeated by them. He learned to ask for help. He learned that leadership didn't mean being perfect, it meant being honest about your limitations and building teams that complemented your weaknesses. Emily was there through all of it, steady and patient. She celebrated his victories and sat with him through his defeats. She learned Korean cooking from the family's elderly housekeeper and taught Ji-won how to make proper banana bread. She introduced him to her parents via video call, and her father talked to him about Shakespeare while her mother asked pointed questions about his intentions toward her daughter. "They like you," Emily reported after the call ended. "My mom wants to visit Seoul next summer. Fair warning, she'll want to meet your family." "My family is a criminal organization transitioning to legitimacy," Ji-won said. Her father was a diamond miner in Namibia who fought against colonial exploitation. "She's met complicated families before." Emily kissed his cheek. "Besides, you're not your family. You're you. And you're kind of wonderful." 2 years after the confrontation with his uncle, Ji-won stood in the newly renovated headquarters of Kang Industries, a legitimate holding company that now owned real estate developments, a tech startup incubator, and 3 restaurants. The criminal operations hadn't disappeared completely, that would take the full 5 years he'd proposed, but they'd shrunk considerably. Most importantly, the family name now represented something he could be proud of. Park attended the ribbon cutting, nodding approval at the modern offices and diverse staff. "Your father would be proud," he said again. "I hope so," Ji-won replied. "I know so. He had the vision. You had the courage to implement it." Park clapped him on the shoulder. Different strengths, same goal. Emily found him later, standing in his new office overlooking Seoul. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her chin on his shoulder. "Thinking profound thoughts?" she asked. "Thinking about how different everything is from 2 years ago. How different I am." "You're not that different. You're still terrible at remembering to eat lunch. You still count silently when you're stressed. You still beat me at chess 90% of the time. 95%. I'm being generous." She turned him to face her. "But you're right that things are different. You're building instead of hiding. You're leading instead of being led. You're living instead of just surviving. Because of you." "Because of you," Emily corrected. "I just help you see what was already there. The courage, the intelligence, the strength, that was always yours, Ji-won. You just needed permission to use it." He kissed her forehead, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. "Stay with me. Not just today, not just this year. Stay." "Is this a proposal?" "Not yet. I want to do that properly, with a ring and a plan and probably a panic attack." He smiled. "This is a promise that a proposal is coming. When the time is right." Emily pulled back to look at him, her eyes bright. "The time is right whenever you decide it is." "I'm not going anywhere, Ji-won Kang. You're stuck with me." "Good," he said simply. They stood together in the office, looking out at the city that had brought them together, the city where Ji-won had finally learned to be more than his family name, more than his diagnosis, more than the broken thing his uncle had tried to make him. He was Ji-won Kang, leader of a changing family, student of chess and strategy, reader of books and builder of better futures. And he was loved, completely and unconditionally, by a woman who'd seen him at his worst and chosen to stay for his best. The Han River flowed past the city, patient and indifferent as always. But Ji-won was no longer envious of its constancy. He'd learned that change, though terrifying, could also be beautiful. That growth hurt but was worth the pain. That the life you were born into didn't have to be the life you lived. 3 years after their first meeting, on the same bench where Emily had talked him through his panic attack, Ji-won proposed with a ring he'd designed himself and a speech he'd practiced for weeks. Emily said yes before he finished the first sentence, laughing and crying and pulling him into a kiss that tasted like tea and promise. "I love you," he told her, the words still new and wonderful in his mouth. "I love you too," Emily replied. "Now and always." Park officiated their wedding in a ceremony that blended traditions from Korea, England, and Namibia, honoring all the cultures that had shaped them. The guest list included family members, former rivals who'd become business partners, Emily's students, and the elderly couple from the cafe who'd watched their relationship develop over countless chess games. Dong-hyun wasn't invited. He disappeared after failing to repay the stolen money, his influence broken, his name stripped from family records. Ji-won didn't celebrate his uncle's downfall, but he didn't mourn it either. Some people chose bitterness over change. That was their burden to carry. On their wedding night, lying in bed in the apartment they'd chosen together, small by Kang family standards, perfect by theirs, Emily traced patterns on Ji-won's chest. Happy, she asked. Terrified, he admitted. Marriage, business leadership, the continuing transition, possible future children, all of it. Absolutely terrified. But happy. He thought about it honestly. Yes. Happy and terrified. Is that allowed? That's called being human, love. Welcome to the club. She kissed his shoulder. We'll figure it out together. Same as everything else. One day at a time. One day at a time, she agreed. Ji-won held Emily as she drifted to sleep, listening to her breathing even out, feeling the weight of her trust and love. He still had ADHD. He still had panic attacks. He still struggled with things that came easily to others. But he also had purpose, partnership, and possibility. The chess pieces were still in motion. The game wasn't over. But for the first time in his life, Ji-won Kang was playing his own strategy, protecting the pieces that mattered, building toward a future he'd chosen rather than inherited. And in the morning, he'd wake up beside the woman who taught him that being different wasn't the same as being broken, that struggling wasn't the same as failing, that asking for help was strength disguised as vulnerability. The morning would bring challenges, certainly. The family business still had years of transition ahead. There would be setbacks and conflicts and moments of doubt. But there would also be Emily's laugh over breakfast, chess games in the evening, quiet moments of connection that made the struggles worthwhile. Ji-won closed his eyes, Emily warm and solid beside him, and let himself rest. The story of the quiet storm and the gentle force that calmed it wasn't ending. It was just beginning. If this story touched you, if Ji-won and Emily's journey resonated with your own struggles and triumphs, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss stories about finding strength in unexpected places, about building better futures from broken pasts, about the power of compassion to change lives. Drop a comment below sharing your own story of overcoming, of finding that person who helped you see yourself differently, of choosing courage over comfort. And smash that like button to help this story reach someone who needs to hear it today. Your engagement matters more than you know. It tells us these stories matter, that vulnerability and hope and second chances deserve space in a world that often feels too hard, too fast, too much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, you're not broken. You're just finding your own strategy, building toward your own checkmate. One move at a time.